Yep.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday to you. And this morning, I'm going to be talking about ethics, one of those subjects that, we determine that are really touchy, really difficult, but very important when it comes to our profession. It kind of guides the way how we do our work, how we behave ourselves. And for many of you, whether you're licensed or unlicensed, whatever profession you are in, there ought to be some kind of a standard, whether it be, from your job, how are you supposed to conduct yourself? In my case, as the director of outpatient services here, I'm also a therapist. I do individual therapy privately, and I'm often, faced with many challenges. So we're looking at ethics this morning. Is it personal or is it professional? It is a combination of both. Has a lot to do with your value system, but at the same time, really, what is it, your board, or what is it, your job? What are the standards of your profession? So I want to stick to the professional part of ethics. And we're going to start our first slide this morning with, what is really the purpose of ethics in counseling. And we're going to open up the chat box for a little bit. If some of the participants, if you can tell me like maybe what field you are in, because my presentation today as a licensed therapist, I abide by the American Council Association Code of Ethics. I'm sure we have social workers in here. We might have psychologists in here. We may have school counselors in here that may have a different, code that they go by according to their board. So if you don't mind, can some of you just kind of put in the chat box who you are, where you're from? Okay, social worker, I see that. A peer support, good. Social work, okay. I see the CADC, the LPC, LCPC, okay. Okay, school social worker, child welfare worker, foster care, case manager. Okay. All right, great. So we have a good combination, a good group here today. So, one of the first things I want to look at is really what is the purpose of ethics in counseling? Why are we zooming in one more day for another credit, another learning? Really, what is the purpose of ethics? And I say it is really a group of moral principles that is according to the American Council Association. There are professional values, really a way of us living out ethical principles. It serves as a guideline. And I'm not going to read verbatim because I'm sure you can read clearly, but I'll read the second paragraph where it says, ethics are important in counseling as they are means to protect the welfare of the client and counselor by clearly outlining what is appropriate.
Hold on. We need to pause for 1 second because not everybody can hear you. Hold on. Sorry. Judy, can you hear now? Okay, we're good. Sorry, I didn't mean to break your concentration.
Okay, great. I'll say that again. Ethics are important in counseling as they are a means to protect the welfare of the client and counselors by clearly outlining what is appropriate. So as you can see, the big ship there capsized. And I pretty much look at ethics as pretty much a ship without a compass. How are you going to set on a journey? For all my cruisers out there, if you've ever been on a cruise, and your cruise, you have a 7-day cruise, or you're destined to go somewhere, but yet the captain of the ship has no compass. So if the captain of the ship has no compass as to where you're supposed to go, where you're going, that ship could capsize, because based on the size of the ship, you don't want to get into shallow waters. It can hurt the hull of the ship. And it is pretty much like counseling ethics. It provides that navigation system for us, when we are working with our population. As I said, it is a means to protect the welfare of the client and especially also the counselor. So let's look at what are ethics in counseling. According to the American Counsel Association, these are professional values. They provide a conceptual basis for ethical principles. And of course, these principles are the foundation for ethical behavior and decision making. And these are the fundamental principles of professional ethical behavior. And we start off first with autonomy. I know in the profession, we hear that a lot, or fostering the right to control the directions of one's life. And the next one is non-maleficence. My accent may not pronounce it clearly, or avoiding actions that cause no harm. Our goal is not to cause harm to the client as well as ourselves. Beneficence, you're working for the good of the individual and society by promoting mental health and well-being. And sometimes we get caught up, and I've seen it in my profession where sometimes, individuals out like there are therapists, counselors, wherever you're at, I've seen where individuals kind of get out of line, like they're working on the behalf of themselves, but you're really working for the good of the individual. And, just quite recently, we hired a peer specialist, and I was able to observe how she worked with the patients here. And to look at really what is good for, that patient, what is good for the individual by promoting their mental health and well-being. So I want to give a good shout out to those peer specialists that are out there. And of course, justice, treating individuals, equitably and fostering fairness and equality. Another fundamental principle you want to look at is fidelity. Honoring commitments and keeping promises, including fulfilling one's responsibilities of trust and professional relationships. And, from my work in private practice, I've observed peers, heard complaints of, clients or patients, where even for some of us who might be in private practice, have employees in private practice, where sometimes our clients, our patients, they report to us, I call it about the abandonment of sometimes their therapists, but I want to encourage you that, honoring your commitments and keeping your promises are really very important, in this profession. Then we look at veracity, dealing truthfully with individuals with whom counselors come in contact with. And last but not least, self-respect. We must understand that, patients see us as what I call the expert in the room, and they're watching everything from the way, we conduct ourselves, how we relate to them, how we speak to them, when we engage with them, really how we conduct ourselves in self-respect is also promoted in a sense that the counselor, is allowed self-care and respect. And I want to touch on self-care very briefly. That can be a whole new presentation. And I see many of my colleagues, especially, with COVID the past 2 years, having to deal with either compassion fatigue or burnout and feel as though, they're not allowed to take some time off. Self-care is very important. After, traveling for so many years, one of the things that I learned, when I got on the plane, for those of you who do travel, the first thing that the air hostess says to you is, in the event of an emergency, that you must put the oxygen mask on yourself first. How are you going to help some person or rescue some person when, you can't breathe? It is important to know when you need to step back, when you need to take that day off, when you need, you may have to cancel out your caseload for the day because you're feeling overwhelmed, not just by the work stress. You have your personal life, you have your professional life, you have external stressors. So really one of those fundamental principles is self-care. But like I said, that's a whole new presentation, but I just want to remind my colleagues out there that taking care of you is very important. I've always felt that when I'm my best self, that I can really do great work. So that's just my personal belief. So why are ethics important in counseling? Even before we get to the next slide, group, why do you think that we really need ethics? Can we not just do our own thing? Like, can we just not run the show how we think it should be run? Ethics are important in counseling as they are means to protect the welfare of the client and counselors by clearly outlining what is appropriate. So we need ethics because they're a means to protect the welfare of the clients that we are serving. And of course, don't forget about yourself. You also need protection for what you are doing. Many of us are out there doing hard work, great work. We are grateful for mental health awareness, that individuals understand the hard work that we do. And therefore, we're glad that we have an ethical framework or principles that are able, to protect us. So we need ethics as their way to not just protect the welfare of the client, but also to protect us. And of course, as counselors, we come across some difficult and sensitive subjects. Some of us hear things that, we said, oh my God, you only hear these things in a Stephen King movie or see them on, the big screen. But we have to deal with some very difficult and sensitive subjects. And of course, it leaves the client in a very vulnerable position. So therefore, it's expected of a counselor to act ethically, meaning adhering to what is known as an ethical framework. We have a duty to care for the clients. And of course, by the nature of the profession, we're to always act in the best interest of the client, not in the best interest of ourselves, not what we want, what we think would be the best thing for them, but really promoting the client goals. I know sometimes personally we think maybe from experience, or maybe the proof is there that this particular treatment or this recommendation may be best for the client, but really that's what you feel. But really from a professional viewpoint, we want to really promote the client goals. And I have seen even in my work where personally, I thought, well, maybe this would work best for the client, but really, they said to me, well, Arlene, yes, but right now, this is what I need. So really promoting the client goals, also protecting the client rights. And of course, we want to maximize the good and minimize the harm. And really following a code of ethics means acting honestly as a business person. And I put that in there as a business person because there are some of you that might be doing private therapy, individual therapy outside of here. So you are a business person. So really, how are you conducting yourself? What is your ethical, framework? You're out there, you're individual therapist, or you have your own practice, or maybe you're working with, minimum supervision, you're part of a business, how are you really, conducting yourself as a business person as well as a counselor. So I'm sorry. So another thing we want to look at is setting and maintaining boundaries. Oh my goodness, we can go on about setting and maintaining boundaries forever when we're talking about ethics and in our professions. And this is perhaps the most important ethical concern for a counselor. One of the things it is necessary to avoid emerging personal relationships with clients. And I am sure many of you have had that experience where, you're working with clients or someone in the profession who has, who engages with clients. And of course, you see those personal relationships. And it is important to avoid those personal relationships with clients due to privacy, confidentiality, and a duty of care. I know sometimes it's not always possible. And I'm going to come from the premise, we're here in Sussex County, and living in Sussex County here in Delaware is a small county. You go down to the boardwalk, you're going to see some of your clients. You go out to eat at restaurants in Rehoboth, you're shopping at Walmart, some of the familiar places. You always, run into a client when you live in small towns. I know I have for many of years. And I get the sense that, sometimes clients feel, well, okay, they're out of work. Maybe this is a good time for me to ask a question, or maybe this is a good time to conversate. So I know sometimes, it is not always possible to really, avoid some of those relationships. Another thing when it comes to church, where everybody, where you go to church and you find some of your clients, patients are at church. And of course, working with individuals daily, strong emotional connections can develop from whatever reason, from either side. And especially when difficult subjects are discussed, you are the one in position of power in the room. They're sharing some of their intimate stuff, deepest secrets, things they've never shared with anyone. And maybe you're the first person who is hearing their story. And we experience two things within that room or within that relationship. The one is transference, and that's where the client has emotional reaction to the therapist. If I can use the words of my teenagers, are they feeling you? I remember in my practice, I had a young gentleman, and he would always keep his appointments, and he would brag about how he had a name in every state. He just seems to be a ladies' man. And I asked him, why did you choose me? Why? He said, I like the fact because, you got an accent. I like the way you talk. And he went on. I'm like, hold it here. Thank you for expressing yourself. And I just had to, redirect him and let him know what our relationship is here. Pretty much, I use the analogy that you can't stop birds from flying over your head, but you can definitely stop them from making a nest. So I can't control the way he felt about me for whatever reason, but certainly I had ethical responsibility once he identified what his feelings were to help him understand what the nature of our relationship was. And well, not really see it as a compliment, but to kind of bring him back around like, okay, I just want to let you know, this is the nature of our relationship. This is what is going to be happening. If you're having other issues, we can work through it. So you want to be careful, of course, having clients, who get that, I call it that emotional attachment. And sometimes it's not always what I call that intimate attraction. Sometimes they may get, they have this emotional connection to you for whatever reason. It's pretty much whatever their needs are, or what is it they're desiring from you, or whatever, in this care relationship. You seem to take on another role for them. And sometimes they're not able to separate the two. So it is important that, when you notice that transference, that, you're able to kind of address it and see, where it's coming from. And I'm not saying you have to abandon the relationship or anything like that, the session, but really, look at, where it's coming from, for your sake, and also protecting the welfare of the client. And then we have the countertransference, where the therapist's emotional reaction to the client. I have had many of my patients who often say to me, Arlene, I feel like when I go to therapy, like I become the therapist. And I'm sure many of you have heard that, where some of your clients, patients, peers have been to therapy sessions, and it seems as though, the therapist has started to share his or her entire life. So it is no longer about the client, it's now about the therapist, what is going on in his or her life. And then we also have where the therapist may have that emotional reaction to the client. And it doesn't matter whether it's male to male, female to female, vice versa. So therefore, we really want to be able to not only set boundaries, but maintain those boundaries. And of course, you should always avoid working with family, or with friends, or people they know personally. Of also, working with family members or someone, and many of you would agree, if this has happened to you, you would have a friend who would say to you, hey, I have a family member, could you, help them out? I know you can work well with them. Sometimes it's best to refer them. And I like to say, even for me in my work, while as a pastor over the years, one of the things that I've always done is refer congregants out for therapy, based on the nature of the relationship. So, you have those friends or family members that always want to, throw you in there, because, they see you as the expert. But setting and maintaining boundaries is very important. And of course, these boundaries are in place to allow everyone a fair and unbiased therapy. And another thing where they can rely on confidentiality to express their problems freely. Most of our clients feel comfortable sharing with us, especially when we're not connected to their peers or their family members or co-workers to some degree, because they have the confidence, well, okay, what I say here, stay here. I'm from the Caribbean, I'm from Barbados. And I always say I was there before Rihanna got there. And anytime you go to a Caribbean house, there's always a plaque. What you see here, let it stay here. If not, don't come back here. Well, obviously, we're not going to say that to our clients, but we need to give clients that level of comfort and support to know that what happens in this room stays in this room. And therefore we avoid what I call these dual relationships or multiple relationships. It may feel good to you personally that, wow, I mean, you really think that I'm a great therapist, and I'm sure that you are. I'm sure you're a great counselor, social worker, whatever profession you're in, and probably a wonderful individual. But really, you want to set those boundaries to kind of help you stay safe. And another thing I want to add in there is self-disclosure. How much of yourself, that you are putting out there in the room, and what is the purpose? What is the purpose of the self-disclosure? Oftentimes, patients will look at me, they'll be like, Miss Arlene, are you married? Or, they want to ask certain questions, unless I have pictures of my daughters. And I say, well, yes, I have 2 daughters. But I don't go too deep into my personal life, because it's really not about me. It is really about the client. So it is important that we set and establish those boundaries. And the next thing is the counseling relationship. And I talk about that ahead of time. So different boards have different guidelines. I would like to say that having a sexual relationship or certain relationships with clients is really prohibited. You really want to think about how your relationship is really going to affect the client. Your goal is really, according to the American Council Association, to encourage client growth and their growth and development, while keeping, the client's welfare in mind. And of course, you maintain that by, maintaining appropriate records, counseling plans, consents, avoiding the dual relationships, as I spoke about before with clients. And like I said earlier, romantic relationships are strictly forbidden. The American Council Association say that it can be considered with former clients after a period of 5 years. But I would like to say, really, it is best to avoid, relationships with your clients. I know we're in a real world and things happen, but it's important that you, observe the guidelines. What is it your board say? The National Association of Social Workers, they say under no circumstances you're supposed to engage in sexual activities or inappropriate communication through the use of whether it be technology. And you know how clients are, even in my job here, I see where, you know, patients are in private practice, they're always requesting, can I get your Facebook page or, you know, Instagram? And a lot of times my staff say, well, hey, Arlene, I saw this person on my Instagram page. I didn't even know how they got there, you know. So you want to make sure that, you know, when it comes even to the use of technology, you're setting boundaries there. And you don't want to have a sexual relationship with a client. It is really not good practice. It is not helpful to you, or the client is really not looking out for the welfare of the client. And the question is, how long shall I wait to have a sexual relationship with a client? And I would encourage you, because we have so many of you here, to really, whether it be the American Psychological Association, whether it be the National Association of, you know, social workers, or, you know, the American, whatever your professional board is. And in addition to that, what does your work say? You know, what are the ethical guidelines at your job? Don't you ever forget your job, because in addition to your board, you also, because you are hired, you know, by an organization, you know, you need to understand, you know, what is the organization ethical standards when it comes also to relationships. And then what is your professional responsibility? You have a professional responsibility to behave in an open and an honest manner when interacting with clients. And of course, you advocate for your clients to promote change that really improves the quality of life for not only the clients, but the public as well. And I'm glad that, you know, that part, the public as well. Just recently, I had a discussion with my colleagues, you know, working in mental health, having to work with clients who have had, you know, these homicidal ideations. And I said, you know, the work that we do, I hope by now that it is valued. I said to my colleagues, and even if we don't get what I call that public recognition, we ought to know that every day we're making a difference in the life of individuals to keep our public and the community safe. I'm sure many of us have witnessed constantly the mass shootings. And the first thing that comes to mind, oh, that person have a mental health disorder. You know, so automatically our profession, you know, it goes right to us. You know, or was there in treatment or not, or was it overlooked, or, you know, who dropped the ball here? But we really have a professional responsibility. We do great work in really improving the quality of lives, not only for our clients, but you know, the communities at large really ought to commend us, you know, for the work that we do, from the White House to our local government, what we do. And I'm so glad that in Delaware that we've become a trauma-informed state, because, you know, for all of us, we do a lot of hard work to try to keep our community safe. And I said it before, you counselors must also take the time to practice self-care. Without proper self-care, counselors risk burnout, which will lead to ineffective, even harmful care for their clients. Because if you're not your best self, if you're frustrated and, you know, you're experiencing compassion fatigue, you have a lot going on in your life, external stressors, the world is at war. You need to know, the same way you put your kids in timeout, when is it important for you to take a timeout? You know, when do you say enough is enough? So while we're also promoting the welfare of the clients, let us not forget about ourselves. And I want to engage you in this clip that I thought might be a little bit thought-provoking. It's a clip from Dr. Phil, and we're going to look at it. And after that, I want you to kind of put your discussion. Some of you might have seen it, might not have seen it, but let us just kind of look at it, and we'll discuss it. So here we go. Hold on. 1 second.
1 second. So I knew it was gonna be a problem.
And he asked for my number. I met Tristan at the beginning of May 2014. I was 29 and he was 17. He came into my classroom, he introduced himself, and he asked for my number. We text back and forth for 3.5 weeks. The last week of texting, it was a little bit more flirtatious. On one of the text messages, I explained that I was tired, and then he did reply back, I give good massages, and I said, oh, really, that would be nice. I didn't think it was wrong. It never once felt like I was talking to a child. I wasn't thinking, wait a minute, I'm a teacher, because I felt this was all happening outside of school. We decided to meet up. He came over to my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. There's a knock at the door. I let him in, and then we did go immediately to the bedroom, and one thing led to another from there. That night was the last time I had contact with Tristan. That following Tuesday, when I was called into the principal's office, she sat me down and said that a video had surfaced of a student at the school and a coach having sex. He had his phone in his pocket, and then while having sex, he pulled it out and I didn't see it. So I didn't notice, and it was only about 10 seconds. He's admitted that he distributed the video to 11 of his friends through his phone. And then from there, the video went to, I don't know, numerous amounts of people. When I found out there was a tape, I was in shock, felt betrayed. We had been talking for almost a month, so I trusted him that I could have sex with him and him not say anything, and we could keep it a secret. I do now feel that I was set up. I do feel that there was some type of motive or intent to get it out there that he had sex with a teacher.
Okay, Tanya, it's good to meet you. You say you felt like you were set up.
Correct.
How so?
Well, the fact that he hid his phone, and then obviously as soon as it was finished, he distributed it to 11 of his friends. And then from there, it went viral.
Okay. So you think it was like a trophy thing?
Correct. Like he wanted some kind of recognition after, sleeping with a teacher.
You said that afterwards you were surprised that he didn't get in touch with you.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised that there was no communication at all, even before I had gotten into trouble.
But you did have communication with him, didn't you, the next day?
No. The next day, just one text in the morning, and that was it.
What was that text?
He texted me that he had a great night, or it was great, or something in that matter. And then I text back that, yes, it was, that, maybe we could do it again.
So y'all both had a good time?
Mm-hmm.
So this wasn't an impulse thing. You had been texting for 3 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You say you didn't know it was wrong.
Well, I'm saying I didn't think it was legally wrong. I know, obviously, with my profession, I crossed a boundary, with the contract that I signed. But legally, I didn't think I would be classified as a felon being charged with having sex with a consenting adult.
Okay, so you knew from a teacher standpoint, just teacher ethics.
Correct.
That it was a breach of your
Contract.
contractual agreement.
Right.
So you have no problem with that part of it. You said, I agreed not to have sex with the students.
Mm-hmm.
And then you did.
Mm-hmm.
But you thought, okay, so then fire me, but don't charge me as a felon.
Correct.
So you were surprised when you were charged?
Yes, I was very surprised.
Did you think he showed it around school for bragging rights?
From what I've heard, yes, it was exactly what it was, bragging rights.
How did you find out that it had been displayed around school?
Well, from numerous amounts of people who said that the video had been sent out. And then my mother's coworker also, her niece had the video, and that's how we saw it for the first time.
You saw it with your mother?
Yes.
How'd that go?
Well,
I don't know how I'd watch something like that with my mother.
well, it's only 10 seconds, and you can obviously tell it's, it was hidden. There's no flash. It's really quick.
You said he had the phone in his pocket?
or on the pocket, on somewhere where he was in his grasp to reach.
Because he didn't have any pockets at the time, did he? I mean,
Well, maybe down at the floor.
oh, so you mean you didn't see it?
Right.
So it wasn't like y'all made a sex tape.
Oh, no, nothing.
He made a sex tape.
Correct.
You were just in it.
Okay.
Wow, we're good. We'll go to the other slide.
The beginning of May 2014.
Okay.
And I want you to think about a lot of things that, she said, she knew that, it was, a part of her contract, she couldn't do it, but she figured, she was talking to him outside of school. And I'm sure you're gathering a lot from here. And if we have any school teachers here joining our group today, I'm not picking on you, but I just thought that this would be a good video where we're looking at really who's in a position of power here, how sometimes, we can get lost in our feelings, have these relationships, and obviously she's being sued now and is possibly going to lose an entire career over one night of fun. So let's just look at the other clip.
I was 29 and he was 17. He came into my classroom, he introduced himself, and he asked for my number. We text back and forth for 3.5 weeks.
Is that the next slide?
No, the next slide, I'm sorry.
Sorry, that was my mistake. Okay.
And when I got to her classroom, we were talking, and then I gave her my phone, she put her number in, and then the next day we started texting.
Mm-hmm. So you know who he's talking about, the mutual friend? Is that, you know who it is that introduced you? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And he said that they had done stuff. Had you done stuff with him?
No.
Do you mean sexual stuff?
Yes.
He means sexual stuff.
Yeah.
You had not.
No.
You had not had any sexual interactions with him?
No.
Had you flirted with him?
No.
Had you said you thought he was cute?
No. Not in that nature, like, oh, I think he's cute. I just said, oh, who's your friend? It was kind of like, I think a little bit of a setup type thing. Like, he's going to come in here and, ask you for your phone number. What would you say? And I was like, no, he's not.
Did it ever occur to you to say, I'm a teacher and you're a student, and it would be inappropriate for me to give you my number because that would be inviting you to call me personally, and that would be inappropriate?
No, because it was now the realm of normalcy for teachers or coaches to have, like, students' numbers.
But you were neither teaching nor coaching him.
Right, which makes it even more appropriate.
So you've just eliminated any reason he would have to call you other than personal.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't crossing a barrier because I wasn't, authoritative figure to him. It wasn't grade manipulation or anything of that nature. So if he went to another school or another district, it wouldn't even be against the law.
If he went to another district,
Mm-hmm. Or I taught at another district.
If.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if your dog meowed, it would be a cat, but it doesn't. He went to your school district in your building, and he walked into your room and he got your number.
Mm-hmm. But none of this took place at school, so it was my personal business.
Oh, where did he get the number?
Well, he got it in my classroom, but other than that...
Well, I thought you said none of it took place at school, other than him
Getting
getting
my
your
number.
number at school.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide.
Okay.
I hope you're gathering all the information, group, kind of just looking at really what's really wrong here.
Just a second. Okay. I'm ready when you are.
So you were coming through after the party, right?
Yeah.
You were at some other party, and you just dipped out and went over there.
Actually, I was at a senior party, and then I went to my friend's house. And then my friend is the one who drove me over there to her house.
So what'd he do?
He just waited outside.
So this was a drive-by. Your friend knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
Am I in the twilight zone here? Honest to God. Okay, so how long were you there?
Probably 45 minutes, an hour, maybe.
And when did you decide you're going to record this for posterity?
Well, the reason I recorded was because I had drinking before, so I was not really in the right mind. And I remember talking to my friend about it, and he would just tell me, if you don't have proof, then I'm not gonna believe you. But I didn't mean to send it out. Actually, my friend texted me that I was outside. He said, "Hurry up, I'm falling asleep." So I tried to text him back, and I accidentally sent it in a group message, which I really didn't mean to do.
Whose idea was it to go to the bedroom when you got there?
First.
Right? Was it your idea to go to the bedroom when you got there?
Well, that's where we went.
Yeah. Did you just, you knew I was there, right?
It was 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. So y'all just went back to the bedroom and he was there for 45 minutes to an hour?
No, it was because he left at 5 o'clock in the morning. So it was about 2 hours.
I mean, I really don't remember. I really don't.
Okay, group. I would certainly like you to put some of
So you
your.
Whoops, sorry.
You were coming.
Okay, getting there. Go ahead.
Did you finish all?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it to
Okay.
stop. Give us just a second. It will not go away. All right, so we're gonna go from,
Yeah, there we go. Ethical decision making.
okay.
There you go. So thank you for watching, group. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I certainly would like for you to put some comments in the chat box. Put my glasses on so I can see really well. What do you think about that? Somebody says she has some self-esteem issues, boundaries broken. Shocking, yeah. Some ethical awareness, definitely. She didn't think she did anything wrong. She's still gazing at the young man. There you go. A lot of boundary issues here. Lisa said she has symptoms of personality disorder, totally inappropriate. After all that time, she still thinks nothing is wrong, no self-awareness, no sense of reality, no remorse. Yes, can't imagine her teaching style. Aren't you glad she didn't have to teach your kid? No embarrassment, even going on, the media. So I'm sure, group, thank you for sharing your comments. I just wanted to kind of give you a more of a visual. Yeah, the comments keep coming.
What we can do is,
Great.
1 second. We can make this chat so that you can see it. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, so I mean, we can definitely tell from that. Yeah, I see mom ready to catch a charge because mom actually sued her. And she's fighting it because she's losing her teacher's license, legal, personal, and professional, boundaries. How was she willing to give her career for that? I guess she probably, like she said, she didn't think because it happened outside of school that, there was anything wrong with it. So, that is why we have ethics, team. That is why we have ethics. And you can keep the comments coming. But really, how do you avoid those situations is what we're going to wrap up on. How do you avoid falling into these ethical dilemmas? And one of the first things, they're like, ACA give us like 7 different ways, or what I call the model. The first thing is to identify the problem. Of course, and you gather as much information as you possibly can. Be objective as you can, get clarity. If it's anything legal, is it an ethical question? Is it legal, professional? Is it clinical? Really examine all of it. When you're faced with a ethical dilemma, and really whether or not is a combination of more than one of these. And of course, if it is legal, some of us who have professional counseling insurance, it is okay, to call up your colleagues, consult with your coworkers, and really ask yourself, is the issue really you related to me, and what I'm doing, really see where you're at, in the situation. The next thing we want to look at is really applying the code of ethics. Once you've identified, the problem, because oftentimes, the complexity of situations that we have to deal with, you really don't want to oversimplify the situation, but you want also be cautious. And the first thing you want to do is identify the problem. So step number 2, apply the code of ethics. Like I said, whether you're part of if you're a social worker, I had my peer specialists in there, case managers. Many of you come from a variety of professions. What does your job say? What is your ethical codes on your job? What does, if you're a social worker, if you're part of APA, the American Psychological Association, like really, what does your board say? Always go to your board and see, examine all the nuances that exist. If the problem can't be resolved by reviewing the code of ethics, then you have a complex dilemma, and you may need to really proceed with further steps in your decision-making model. Really take the time to thoroughly analyze and assess all aspects of the situation and really its potential solutions. Step number 3, really determine the nature and the dimensions of the dilemma. Like I said, consult with your board, consult with other maybe professional associations to see if maybe they can provide some help with the dilemma. Look at the literature. What is the literature saying? No one is an island. If you have colleagues, it's also good to consult, connect with them, collaborate with them, and, review the problem. Step number 4, really, what is your course of action? Brainstorm as many courses of action as you possibly can. Be creative. List a lot of the options you can think of, the ones who would work, the ones that will not work. And of course, you want to generate as many possible solutions as you can. Don't worry about judging and eliminating solutions. You will evaluate them in the next step. And I always say, consult. I have a personal term. I always say when I'm not consulted, I am insulted. And in my personal life and professional life, but more so professional, when I'm faced with circumstances because of the complexity of my job. I have colleagues that I go to, individuals I can consult with, because of course, we want to promote the welfare of the clients and also ourselves. Step number 5, consider the potential consequences of all options and really determine a course of action. Consider the information that you've gathered and also the principles you've set. Evaluate the options. Also assess the potential consequences for all the parties involved. It's okay to ponder the implications of each course of action for the client, for yourself and others who may be affected by this. Eliminate the options that don't give the results that you're looking for or that may cause more problematic consequences. And of course, review the remaining options to determine which option or combination of options best fits the situation and address the priorities to determine. Step number 6, review the selected course of action to see if it presents any new ethical considerations. Of course, you want to look at justice. Of course, publicity. Hey, she should have considered whether or not she really wanted to be out there in the press, right? Universality. Whether or not you can recommend the same course of action to another counselor in the same situation. So really, if the course of action you've selected causes new ethical issues, really go back to the beginning and evaluate. And really, last but not least, when you've look at the past 6 months, you've identified the problem, you've applied your code of ethics based on your board, your job, really examine the nature and dimensions of the dilemma. You've decided the course of action you're going to take, and really you've also reviewed the consequences of all the actions you've chosen. And you have then decided, after thorough evaluation, you've selected your course of action. Then it is time to implement your course of action. So that's pretty much, according to the ACA, the 7 steps and ethical decision making, their model. And I just want to say to all of you, thank you for, being with us today. I do know in this field of work, and also in your field of work, that there are going to be many complexities, many situations that we often say, is it right or wrong? But don't forget to keep yourself, I call it kind of versed. You probably may not have to know the standards word for word, but I have my ACA Code of Ethics book that I go through and I review, and then I look at the state of Delaware, like, okay, what does the state of Delaware say? And when I'm faced with, certain, situations, then I have colleagues that I can consult with. It is one of those situations that you really don't want to approach alone. But that's the reason we have ethics. We've reviewed the video briefly. There are just so many things in there that was wrong ethically, that was wrong personally, that was wrong professionally. And always remember, you bring your person to the profession, you bring you to the profession. And it is important that you keep yourself in check, to avoid the countertransference. So I hope that this presentation was helpful. I'm sure the slides would be available for you if you need it for, for understanding.
We will email it to them with the summary.
Okay, so thank you. If you have any questions, I'm sure you can.
So if you wanna look at the questions that come up, if there are any questions. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We're just gonna go through them right now. And don't forget to pick up the link for the survey so that you can get credit for being here as part of the program today. And Judy just put the link in the chat for the survey, so please pick that up. If you have any problems, you can email us and we will be happy to help you. See, just watch if there's any other questions, and then you should be good.
Are there any other questions? Let's see in the chat box, and I want to say thank you. Of course, how gender dynamics played into the reactions of people in the clips you showed, and I know this is something that we're going to deal with. What if it was the other way around? What if it was same sex? And these are just some of the complexities that we are going to encounter in our profession. It's saying link is asking me to log in via Google.
Oh, let Judy handle that.
Judy, she would handle that. So I just want to say, you know, our world is ever changing. Mental health issues or individual problems are becoming more complex. For the past 2 years, we've never heard of COVID, and we've seen something we've never seen before. We've had to deal with all the external stressors and all the other dysfunctions that is caused in people's life, how it's affected lives and our personal life in many ways. I'm sure my life was impacted last year, you know, by COVID. And, you know, when we have to make decisions, whether it be for us or for our clients, and we find ourselves sometimes in a dilemma trying to do what is right. I always say, you know, when in doubt, consult. Consult with your peers, you know, consult with your bosses, you know, find your colleagues who are in the profession and aware. So please don't try to approach these issues single-handedly. Just make sure that you have a good support team, other individuals who have different eyes to see things from a different viewpoint. And
Is there going to be any questions about the survey? Should be good.
all right. So once again, thank you for joining. We're going to put it back over to Esther. Have yourself a fantastic summer. And thank you for taking the time out to be with me today. So be safe, be well. Thank you.
Okay, you can, let me get it. Okay, I'm gonna turn off your video.